Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome the audience to the Will and Willis Wrestling Podcast. This is our debut podcast. Today we're going to take a look at WWE. Why are there so many bad guys? Who are the good guys and who are we supposed to cheer for? And then we'll take a look at AEW's All Out pay-per-view and the controversy and fallout that stemmed from that event. That is all that and more here on the Will and Willis Debut Podcast. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Will and Willis Podcast. I am Jason Willis, and I'd like to introduce my co-host for this magic carpet ride, Will Spann. Will, what's going on, man?
Oh, it's a great day in the neighborhood. I would like to thank you for having me on the show. First and foremost, we've talked about this a long time coming, and it's now coming to fruition right now. I am excited.
It is a long time coming indeed. Well, we've got some stuff to talk about in the world of pro wrestling, and let's start off with, if you don't mind if we just deep dive right into it, Will, let's talk about WWE, and then who are the good guys these days? Seems like we have an awful lot of heel turns lately. We've got, we've had Braun Strowman.
This is right.
We've had Cedric Alexander last week on Raw, and of course the big one that came out of SummerSlam and then into the Payback pay-per-view was one Roman Reigns, and I know you have some comments about Roman.
Oh my goodness, Roman, not Roman. Oh man, Roman Reigns. Well, in a nutshell, what did you expect?
I actually expected this a few years ago.
After the leukemia thing.
I thought it might happen before that. There were always rumors that they were going to do this with John Cena for years, and they never pulled that trigger. I'm a little surprised that they did it, but in this COVID era of pro wrestling that we're currently dealing with, something had to get the ratings turned around, don't you agree?
Of course. What does an essential business have to do to get notoriety in the public?
Well, there is certainly a buzz around Roman. My bigger concern is we've had so many guys turn bad here lately that who am I supposed to be cheering for on the Raw and SmackDown side of the equation?
Maybe it's time to not cheer for anybody and look at what is on the table. Well, we're in a global pandemic. I mean, you can't expect WrestleMania moments in the garage. Basically, I mean, working at the Performance Center 24/7, now this big move to the Amway Center. I mean, it's a gradual progression, but still there's no fans.
Well, we're hoping, I think, gradually. I know AEW has let in a limited number of fans. Of course, they're in an outdoor facility. You can kind of get away with that. I don't know what or when WWE will get live fans back, but at least the Thunderdome is something. Certainly you can make a case that there is a buzz on social media.
Oh, yes.
Over these current events. But again, I'm trying to... The question I have is, do I cheer for the scary clown guy that has tried to destroy everything with the evil puppet show now? Or I don't cheer for Strowman after what he did to Alexa Bliss, agreed? Or... And on the Raw side, it's even worse, I think.
Okay. First question, so who are the good guys? Well, of course, WWE Champion Drew McIntyre. And that's a 50-50 slippery slope within itself anyway, because prior to McIntyre getting the title, he was with a little group. Who was Baron Corbin? It was Baron Corbin.
Yeah, did that have a name? Did that stable even have a name? I know what you're talking about. They didn't need a
name. As much ass as they kicked.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Right. So Drew, I feel like McIntyre's turn to babyface was pretty organic, because at the time we still had live crowds, and the more he was doing and kicking people in the face with claymores and that sort of thing, he gradually grew into that role. A funny thing happened along the way. Braun Strowman went back babyface as well in there. So,
right.
But at the moment, I'm looking at. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm taking a look at the roster. When you take a look at Raw, we have, of course, the WWE champion Drew McIntyre, and then it gets kind of light on the fan favorite side, doesn't it? I mean, we just brought in Keith Lee. He's been there about 3-4 weeks now.
Right.
So established in NXT, definitely, but not so much on the main roster. And we've seen what WWE's done to former NXT stars on the main roster. They just never seem to pan out. Then we have Ricochet, who is rumored not to be one of Vince's favorites. We have Apollo Crews, who's just now getting something of a mid-card push. The Viking Raiders? I mean, like I said, who I guess my question is, who's going to be the next guy to step up and be that big superstar baby face that we need to get behind and rally behind? Do we wait for Daniel Bryan to come back?
No. No. He's already done his job by establishing the Yes Movement. He's done what he had to do. I'm going to make a call right now. The next babyface is not going to be a guy, but it's going to be a girl. Bianca Belair.
I can see that. But you're talking one part. You're talking a women's division only.
Oh no. That is the wife of Montez Ford. You have your Street Profits.
Ah, okay. All right. So we're going to take Montez Ford and make him a single, and he's going to be the next big guy on Raw?
He has the potential. He's definitely got the energy. But for what's already on the table, because you got Keith Lee,
right,
and he's an awesome worker. I mean, the 2 matches that he worked with Randy Orton, instant classics.
Oh, he's amazing for a man of that size that can do what he can do. He's absolutely. I mean, he's a phenomenon. He can be, I think, with the proper promotion and push, be that guy. My only concern was that the NXT talent that has been brought up before hasn't exactly. They start out with some momentum, and then all of a sudden their momentum's gone. They do something stupid. At least on Raw this week, Keith Lee didn't take a loss after the RKO. We had.
He did take a loss, didn't he?
No, he didn't. No, it was a disqualification because Drew McIntyre ran in and gave him the Claymore.
I thought that was a pinfall, and he got up and then got Claymored.
I don't think he took a pinfall on that.
Okay. Well, we'll have to check that out there later on this program or the following one.
You give me your opinion on what we're talking about, and I'll research the phone.
Vince and management got rid of their surplus in April with the Black Wednesday thing going on. That was a setback that could have been avoided, but at the same time gave AEW and Impact and New Japan a chance to put their goods on the table and see how it rolls out for them. The playing field is level again. I believe it's level because everybody has a what is the word I'm looking for? Everybody has an equal opportunity for greatness to further their career. Case in point, the return of Eric Bischoff in AEW. If you can flip-flop between promotions with the same job, I'm not saying, go in as a manager, in one promotion and hit it as a referee in this one and whatnot. Eric Bischoff's been the boss everywhere he's gone. I mean, but now, as of late, he has to answer to someone as well.
Oh, he's going to have to unless he starts his own promotion. Briefly, let me go back. That was not a pinfall loss for Keith Lee.
It wasn't?
No.
I stand corrected.
It was a RKO run in, and then so if anybody wants to check me out, you can go to the WWE page on YouTube for that. But that's what happened. So they're keeping Keith Lee strong.
Okay. But he did take that RKO, and he did sell it well.
Well, you can go back and look at the history of Randy Orton RKOs, and there's been some awesome ones. So, not to get too far off topic here, you mentioned AEW a minute ago while I was looking up that clip. I think Eric's involvement right now, I believe, was just a one-off for the MJF press excuse me, not MJF, I'm sorry, Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho debate. So I don't know that he's back in the business. I'm sure that if AEW were to give him a call, let me talk about AEW for a minute before we get before we deep delve into the pay-per-view. I do like the use of managers. That managers have kind of made a comeback in AEW. You got Tully Blanchard,
right,
with FTR and Sean Spears. We've got Arn Anderson, who was with Cody, up until Cody's been kind of written off the show here for a little bit. And who else? Vicky Guerrero's with Nyla Rose,
and Jake the Snake Roberts with
Lance Archer. So I guess while we're talking about AEW, let's go ahead and go into the All Out pay-per-view. I made some notes here. Let me go back. I apologize. I did not write down the results, but I watched Dynamite on a Wednesday, and I made a ton of notes for that. But let's just go back and take a look at what happened. So we've got the first match we had, I believe
that was the girls, was it?
Let's just run down some of these matches. They don't necessarily have to be in order, but let's run down the matches. Okay, so this is not the right All Out. You're gonna have to edit this shit.
It's all good.
So when we go to the pre-show, we've got Joey Janela with Sonny Kiss versus Serpentico with Luther.
Right.
That's your opening. Nothing major here. Joey Janela is your winner. Private Party versus Dark Order, and Private Party took that bout in tag team. So Private Party's getting a little bit of a rub here in the tag team ranks. Now here's where Jim Ross joins the commentary team, and man, what has happened to JR? He is checking out big time. I don't know if he's just collecting a check or he is just not enamored with the promotion at all. It's not exactly what he thought he was. Anyway, this is another one of those backstage cinematic type matches. Nothing happened in the ring. Big Swole won when she stabbed Britt Baker with Novocaine in the leg, and pinned her in the dentist chair. So, and if you think that was something, it gets worse from here.
It reminded me of the Bret Hart versus Goldberg back in the day.
Right. Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express. This match wasn't that bad. If you take it for a Young Bucks match, you're going to have a lot of flips, you're going to have a lot of gymnastics, you're going to have a lot of things that look choreographed. But anyway, Young Bucks over Jurassic Express.
Of course.
Boy, here's where it gets really interesting. The Casino Battle Royal with rules I'm not even going to attempt to explain. However, I know these folks were coming in groups of 5 or 6 at certain intervals. I don't know if it was 6 minutes or 3 minutes. I know at one point it was 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
So you start out Jake Hager, Trent, Blade, Ray Phoenix, and Chris Daniels.
Yeah.
All right, that's where it started. Then we go to Frankie Kazarian, Will Hobbs, Chuck Taylor, Santana, and Ortiz come out together. Go figure. Here we go. Billy Gunn, Ricky Starks, Brian Cage, and Pentagon. And while all this is going on, no one's really clearing the ring. So you've got a cluster, a big cluster of guys.
Can you repackage the
young
Royal
guy
Rumble?
and the young guys, you know, the less experienced ones are taking these crazy bumps, and oh gosh, poor Matt Sydal.
Oh, Evan Bourne.
The former Evan Bourne.
Oh, yes.
At one point makes his way out, goes up to the top rope for what looked like either a 450 or maybe a shooting star press, probably the shooting star press, and completely slips off the ropes. Well, and this was mentioned elsewhere. He didn't even knock the guy down. He didn't run in the ring, knock the guy down, and ascend to the top rope. Somebody else knocked the guy down. It's like, oh, I'll just let me just go ahead and dive off here and poor Matt Sydal. He's a really good athlete. They said it was hot and humid there. They said the temperatures had got like heat index like up to 105. So
when
maybe
you
it was
that spice. That's what happened.
Maybe now you're making accusations I can't back up. So
no, that was a joke. That was a complete. I didn't mean anything by that.
But at one point, and going back to as a guy that had 17 years in independent wrestling myself, why would you ever do this? Darby Allin gets put in a body bag by Brian Cage. Brian Cage loaded the body bag with the thumbtacks and proceeded to dump him over the top rope onto the wooden stage when this thing is full of thumbtacks. Why are these guys, and I know they're making money, but why are these guys killing themselves with all these silly, goofy gimmicks?
Because it's all about the money.
Well, but you want to be alive to do your next match, don't you? I mean,
we'll ask Mick Foley that.
And not everybody's Mick Foley, though. Not everybody has the pain threshold that Mick Foley has. Not as many people have the intelligence that Mick Foley has.
We can't talk to Big Van Vader.
And we certainly can't. Anyway, long story short, and Lance Archer won this battle royal. This goofy, gimmicky, crazy thing. It's
Product
not
of Jake the Snake Roberts.
It's not, and I like Jake with Lance Archer, and I think Lance Archer is going to make a good number one contender. I think it's interesting. I think him and Moxley had actually had some matches in New Japan, which is probably where this is stemming from. People have seen those and how good they were. So, but what killed it for me, Will, tell me if you agree with this.
I think
go ahead.
Moxley and Archer should be tag team.
Well, let's see if they ever put that together.
The brood of vipers.
Well, you're planting a seed that doesn't exist yet. But if AEW wants to if anyone's listening and wants to take that idea,
there it is.
we've put it out there. But it was almost like spoiler alert for the main event. Because I don't think we were going to put MJF and Lance Archer together. But anyway, we'll keep going. So during that battle royal, one of the first controversial segments took place. Allie Kay, who is an incredibly attractive woman, first of all, and I'm not trying to be sexist or anything, but really attractive, 22 years old, probably the best thing about the Dark Order, makes them look good. She's going to be a star, I believe. At one point, she got into a brawl with Brandy Rhodes at ringside. And when the camera cut back, she looked like she was adjusting her top. And Jim Ross said, do you want to say it or am I going to say it?
You go ahead.
Jim Ross said, did Allie Kay have a wardrobe? Right. Now, I couldn't even spit it out. Malfunction, or was that just wishful thinking on my part? Hang on, before you say anything. This made New York Daily News. It went that far. Now, do you think that's just a throwback to the Attitude Era days with Jerry Lawler and puppies, and you could get away with that back then? Is Jim Ross just a lonely old man? He's 68.
Being the professional that Jim Ross is, and I tip my hat to him, no pun intended, that statement and the way he presented it was something tongue-in-cheek that was supposed to have been thought, and I get it if the girl wasn't 22.
I don't know if it's so much of the age difference. It's just the social awareness now, I believe.
I remember back in the day when they were talking about stuff like that. If you made mention about stuff like that, that was harassment or, inappropriate behavior.
Well, they're saying that now. I don't think did anybody complain about, well, I think, not FCC, what am I trying to say? There was a brand, not a brand, but a company that kind of parents against whatever network television or something like that. There was a guy that was always on WWE, not on WWE television, but it always was
on their case.
On their case about content like that. I don't know. I think, personally, I think JR made a mistake. He's apologized for it. Why it blew up like it did, I mean, there's the power of social media for you. It was obvious a lot of people were on Twitter during this show because our next segment was Sammy Guevara against Matt Hardy. And at one point in this bout, they ascend onto a scissor lift. It's basically a fight in the back, in the bowels of the arena, Daly's place somewhere. And they get on a scissor lift. Matt Hardy attempts a side effect, blocked by Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara turns it into a spear. They both crash through a table, and Matt Hardy obviously hits the back of his head on the concrete. Mm-hmm. He is in La La Land for a good 5 minutes, at least, if not longer. The referee threw the X up a couple of times. He was examined. Sammy Guevara was retained. Thought that should have been the end of the match right there. However, I think the reason that it didn't end because it had a stipulation with Matt Hardy's career on the line, and therefore they were trying to get through it. They say the doctor examined him and he passed a concussion protocol. How?
In less than 3 minutes.
And how in the world can you say that he passed concussion protocol where you have a man on the ground
that just took a bump from about 15 feet up in the air,
hit his head hit the back of his head on concrete? Now, for anybody that's never been in a wrestling ring, I can assure you that's not a trampoline. I've hit the back of my head in a wrestling ring, a couple times from just regular bumps to flying drop kicks and things like that. That didn't feel good. That has legitimately given me a concussion before, much less from 15 feet in the air and hitting your head on concrete. That was a very serious situation. A lot of controversy on the way AEW handled it. The match did continue. Matt Hardy did win, where he dropped Sammy Guevara from this apparatus, this staging from it looked like even higher, 25 feet, but that one looked like it was obviously set up to cushion the fall, whereas this was a table spot that was missed. And Matt Hardy's got to be, 45 now?
Matt Hardy's 43, I believe.
Why is he still doing these things?
Same reason why Jeff is.
Why? Guys, you don't need to do this. I'll come back to that point. The point I was getting ready to make. I'll come back to that in a minute. Hikar Rashida versus Thunderosa. Thunderosa was touted as, and I guess is, the NWA Women's Champion.
That was my second bathroom break. I missed that one.
Anyway, Shida retains.
Right.
Nothing of note, really. The match was... the way they tried to hype this on Dynamite the Wednesday after, it was boring. Okay, let's just say it was boring. Their women's division is not in any way on par with WWE at this point.
No, sir.
I mean, their best wrestler is Lana-esque at best, I think. If you want to call Lana the worst worker on the... do you want to... I mean, would you?
Lana...
Even Marie? Who's not there anymore.
Is about to make a comeback. The little vignettes that have been on Raw. Or on SmackDown, rather.
At least she's something to look at.
I'm calling that's Eva Marie.
Okay. It possibly could be. There's a huge rumor about that. But yeah, definitely going to have to, and they're going to do women's tag team titles as well, when the singles division isn't even that strong. So
exactly why?
I question a lot of things that they're doing, and after we go through the Dynamite review, I will wrap this up with a point. I promise there's a point to all this.
Okay.
All this complaining. 8-man tag, Dark Order, Natural Nightmares, Matt Cardona, and Scorpio Sky. Of course, if you don't know who Matt Cardona is, that is the former woo Zack Ryder. Rhodes family gets revenge. They go over here. Here was a match I was really looking forward to that I was really disappointed in. FTR with Tully Blanchard versus Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. For the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Wow. Okay, where do I start? I love FTR. Cash Wheeler, you're forever my boy. We've come up together on Independence. We got to work several shows together. Love that guy. True story, facilitated a picture with me and Shinsuke Nakamura. From the Wild Wing. Yeah. So I'll always love him for that.
Right on.
Dax I don't know as well, but seemed like a really cool guy. So hats off to those guys. I'm glad they're doing well. They're Carolina boys. Always like to see somebody local do well, and those guys are now the tag team champions. They are the first ever NXT, SmackDown, Raw, and AEW World Tag Team Champions. Kudos to them. But this match, I can tell Cash and Dax were being very lenient towards... This was a Kenny Omega Hangman match. Mm-hmm. This was not an FTR match. Some of the things they did in there, some of the double teams and things like that they're known of, and their timing and these things, but there was just a lot of flippy, I'm going to take this move, that move... a lot of craziness in there, and it just went too damn long. Right. That was my big thing. If this match had been 18 to 20 minutes versus 30 to 35 minutes, I think it could have been a tag team classic. Of course, it looks like Paige and Omega aren't going to team anymore, so you probably won't see this rematch, and I know what they're setting up for.
What's that?
I know what they're setting up for. This has been set up since Twitter last year. We're going with the Young Bucks versus FTR. It's coming. Whether it comes at the next pay-per-view, which I believe is in November, whether that happens then or it happens later, but that's the match that everybody's going to salivate for. That's the one that wrestling fans are going to pay the $50 to see.
And the Bucks might not make it out of this one.
Yeah, that could actually turn into a legitimate
feud.
Well, listen, they're all professionals,
right?
But I do think that they have rubbed each other the wrong way a little bit. I think
and
there
the
may
element
be
of Tully
some
Blanchard being there.
Tully Blanchard's there. There is a little bit of legitimate heat there. However, we've seen people that have had legitimate heat before, and then they've come through matches, unless you get screwed out of your belt, like Bret Hart. But, it'll come off eventually. Whether it happens at the next pay-per-view, I don't know. Anyway, Jurassic Express gets a shot next week at the tag titles. The first title defense is supposed to be on Dynamite. But even more craziness to come on this overly stuffed, gimmicky pay-per-view, Mimosa Mayhem.
Oh, jeez.
Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho. Where do you stand on Orange Cassidy?
Who's that?
Okay, that's where you stand on Orange Cassidy.
No, that was a joke. He's got the gimmick. As an in-ring performer, slightly above mediocre.
But what is the gimmick? Is that he doesn't care? I mean,
the gimmick is everybody else's interpretation.
Well, now
that's what I get from
now he's performing, and I like his strikes look terrible still. He's performing now like Chris Jericho has taken him out of that shell. Like, okay, I better start fighting. I better start caring. I'm better than this. That sort of thing. The guy just doesn't do a lot for me. I've got friends that love this dude. I mean, just think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I'm just like, he's kind of a plain-looking guy with denim and shades and puts his hands in his pockets and I don't know. All right, so
he was us, you and I, before we got into the business.
Maybe, but
and that's the
I never stuck
the rest of the world to get into. You know, okay, what's this wrestling? Orange Cassidy. That sounds like the corniest name in the world, but something about the word orange.
I never stuck my hand in my pants during a wrestling match ever. I did wear tennis shoes and socks.
I wouldn't recommend doing so either.
So anyway, let's get into the bout. So Mimosa Mayhem, pinfall submission or dump your opponent into 500-gallon vats of mimosa.
That would work if it was a women's match.
Which probably a women's match from like the late 90s.
Right.
Probably. It's something Vince Russo would come up with. Is he secretly on the booking committee? Do we know?
My sources haven't told me a thing.
Okay, so we don't know who's booking this stuff. But anyway. Orange Cassidy wins, which, okay, great. Jericho is Jericho. So it's not going to really bother him, I don't think. Jericho's Jericho. He can do anything he wants. Where do we go with Orange Cassidy from here? Is he going to be pushed into the main event scene and become champion? Well, anyway, we've got the Dynamite results, so we'll show you what happened.
Oh, Dynamite! Oh yes, yeah, it's a great day on AEW right now.
Yeah, we've got Dynamite results too. All right, here we go. AEW World Championship: Jon Moxley against MJF. I love MJF. I am a huge fan of this guy. There's no better, besides Randy Orton, there's no better heel in wrestling right now than MJF. I'm sorry, his promos are dead on. His work in the ring is incredible. He wrestles like a heel. He looks like a heel. He talks like a heel. He social media's like a heel. You don't see him out there kissing babies or doing stuff for charity or any of this other silly stuff that people do on social media. Fantastic.
Reminds me of Kevin Owens after Atkins diet.
Yeah, just this guy's great. Why they did not pull the trigger on this title change, I will never know. I can only say maybe we're stuck in the Impact zone with bringing in WWE guys and putting belts on them right away?
Okay, you got it. You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
I understand making Jericho the first champion. I understand that. You're trying to establish a company. You're building a brand. I think Jon Moxley is boring. He's Stone Cold 2.0 and not even a good Stone Cold 2.0. It's obvious that now that the chains have been taken off, so to speak, he said, WWE was holding me back, the creative was bad. You're not really doing anything different here, John, except every once in a while your matches are a little more hardcore. You're going back to that CCW stuff that you used to do. So, this pay-per-view, my God.
I got one for Jon Moxley.
Every match had a dive in it. What do you got for Moxley?
Fight Brody.
Could happen.
Fight Brody and your boredom will be gone
You think
instantly, along with your life, your breathing, and everything else. Brody Lee.
That does seem like a natural matchup, though, doesn't it? Because you have title for title. You could do title for title. That could happen.
Also could happen is AEW is going to keep the same WWE format, and I don't want to rush it yet, but the answer to Brody came out on Dynamite.
Well, let's see. What did happen on Dynamite? So you have. Let me preface this by saying I was just on Twitter this morning.
Okay.
This episode of Dynamite drew 1,000,016. So that's 1,016,000 fans.
Okay.
Their best number since their debut episode. Now, granted, we're coming off a pay-per-view, and we're unopposed by NXT. NXT was on a Tuesday. By the way, congratulations, Finn Balor.
Finn Balor, yes.
We didn't cover NXT in depth because I really didn't watch it. So, but Finn Balor is NXT champion.
And he did stomp a mud hole in Adam Cole's rear. That was a great beatdown, and I tip my hat to Triple H as well, schooling him as far as making the story more believable, and the facial expressions and the mannerisms that go with, this is going to be a hard fought match.
Yeah, so we don't have, and there was an interview, just to touch on NXT briefly, talking about why we don't see the Demon King as much, and you can research that on your own, but I love the Demon King. I like Finn Balor as a single. I just never thought he really got the due he deserved after he lost the Universal Championship. Of course, that wasn't even his fault. It was a shoulder injury. But getting back on to AEW. Okay, so this is the most watched Dynamite since the beginning. All right. So what happened? All right. So we had Matt Hardy come out. He addressed his injury, looked clear-headed, good to go, but said, "Hey, I've got to go home and heal up for a while." Kudos to him. When I come back, I'm making my focus the AEW World Title. I like that. I like that a lot.
I like it too.
I like that a lot.
It screams that this man has a concussion.
Yeah. It screams
because
this man has
if you think you can take Brody out, no.
He needs to go home and make sure he's okay.
And as long as he keeps thinking that he's going to take Brody, no. I'm sorry.
I'm taking you're a Brody Lee fan.
Oh man,
not that I'm not.
Brody Lee, and in my day when I was coming up in wrestling as a little kid, I loved Bruiser Brody. This dude, Huss. And I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? He's running around talking all kind of craziness, but kicking ass.
That's probably the best comparison to an old school guy. You can make for Brody Lee. And I disagree with some people. Like, I've heard, do I dare mention another podcast on my podcast? There's another podcast. His name rhymes with horny. Okay, so he's not a Brody Lee. He's not a Brody Lee fan. He doesn't see Brody Lee as a star or as a guy that can carry a company. I kind of disagree with that.
I disagree with that big time. I mean, that depends on if you want a wrestling atmosphere, or you want a street fight atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because this is one half of the Bludgeon Brothers.
Well, you still need a mix of everything. I think you can't just be. Well, I mean, the Andersons were brawlers. You had the NWA. The Andersons were brawlers.
The Minnesota Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
But then Wrecking Crew.
Right. Exactly.
Bludgeon Brothers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's listen to that.
So.
And then for that matter, the Road Warriors.
Yeah.
And we're
Bruisers. Yeah, the best tag team ever, in my opinion.
Second best to Steiner Brothers.
Okay, well, that's where
that's wrestling.
That's where you and I differ. Right. Okay, so Jurassic Express beat the Lucha Brothers. They earn a shot at FTR. Lucha Brothers kind of tease a breakup. Eddie Kingston makes peace. Young Bucks, Alex Marvez, who I don't really care for, backstage interviewer, gets super kicked by the Young Bucks.
Oh, yeah.
And is laid out.
He was out like, oh.
Yeah, it's just. And then, okay, what's wrong with the Young Bucks? I mean, they're obviously, making.
They know that their time is almost up.
Yeah, I think so. And AEW doesn't really have clearly defined heels or faces, and they said they didn't want that. So who knows what this is going to be? But anyway, all right. So because we're getting to the good stuff here. All right, and I know what you're. Just hang on. I'm getting there.
Okay.
So let's see. They do that. Orange Cassidy defeated Angelico and got jumped by Santana Ortiz. Best friends Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta. They challenge them for next week. That's a typical wrestling.
Didn't we see
angle.
that out of them like the week before?
I thought that happened. Yeah. Oh, about the mom's van.
Yeah. It's like, wait a second, hold up.
And now they've merchandised it. So. Yeah.
Son, guess what you're getting for Christmas?
They've merchandised it. So, Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss versus Jericho and Jake Hager. No DQ. Hager pins Kiss after Chris Jericho hits the fire extinguisher to the face. There's a promo afterwards that said that Jericho is claiming him and Jake Hager will now be a permanent tag team and will go for the tag team championships. There's a lot of stuff in this. There's a lot of stuff in this show.
Didn't Jake beat Jericho for the world title on SmackDown?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why that sounds familiar.
Yeah. He was the guy that cashed in Money
in the Bank
on Jericho.
I knew something was up with that.
MJF fires his whole campaign team. Threatens Wardlow.
Should.
That may be a turn. We got a Moxley promo. They're just like, hey, whatever. We had the FTR celebration, which got ruined, of course, because anytime you bring out a cake, that gets ruined. You had a Ricky Starks promo. You had Ty Conti versus Nyla Rose. That was a squash. Ty Conti's pretty.
Goodness.
And then I'm going to go to the moment that should have made the main event, but was not. But I will go to this moment. Kip Sabian comes out with Penelope Ford and introduces the best man. And we get a couple of teases. We got some big guy that supposedly supports his Patreon or his Twitter or something like that.
Yeah.
And Sabian keep donating, sends him to the back. Brian Pillman Jr., who I really like, came out, and of course, I said you're the best, man, not you're my best man. So anyway, after a couple of teases,
I thought it was going to be Orlando Jordan.
No, it wasn't Orlando.
Oh, man.
Miro, the former Rusev, debuts
that was awesome
on AEW Dynamite, and I legitimately marked out. Fans were chanting Miro Day.
Miro Day, yes.
Sure, there's better ways to debut somebody, but this, I cannot get over my praise for Miro. I think he's an incredible athlete, horribly misused in WWE.
Oh, yeah.
Has every bit of potential to be a star. Kudos to him. I hope that AEW uses him right and puts him in the right spotlight and does something with him. But man, with a limited crowd, the reaction that he got, if there had been 20,000 in that crowd, he would have got the pop of the century.
Yep. Remember when Sting showed up on Survivor? What was it, Survivor Series?
Yeah, it was Survivor Series. Yeah. I think it would have been
the exact same
it would have been
pop.
At least, I no doubt in my mind.
Taz debuted.
Huge, yeah. It was loud enough from what crowd was in attendance already. I really enjoyed that. So, and now to your guy. Here we go. Mr. Brody Lee, TNT champion, versus Dustin Rhodes. Great match, first of all. Very good match.
Passing of the torch.
Very old school, technical, hard hitting. Everything you look for in the wrestling match. See if they would do more of this. If AEW would do more of this, they would be
on top of the world.
On top. However, very good main event. I thought it was a great way to end the show. Mr. Brody Lee wins, of course, and then we get the beat down with the Dark Order, and which the
NWO.
Yeah, we could have, we could have done without another beat down, but
that one kind of seemed fit for the cause because what had just happened. Brody beat Dustin, and I know Dustin from way back in the day. Matter of fact. Right here in Charleston,
sure.
I was judging a wet T-shirt contest with him and the big boss man up at a certain local watering hole. Plum crazies. Oh man, that was like the hub.
Well, they're not even around anymore.
It's a church now, but that's cool. But yeah,
let's don't mention people that aren't sponsoring the show.
But like I said, a certain watering hole that I used to frequent very often.
I think a lot of people frequented that watering hole. But
cool guy.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
Dustin is real cool. He's smart.
He's really smart. He's
got a knowledge of the business. He's got, that psychology that very few wrestlers have these days. I mean...
A good guy and still incredible work. He's 51.
Yes.
And is still amazing in the ring. When he made that comeback,
and he's a legitimate
he really slimmed down and came back to WWE and was Goldust again. I mean, what a run.
He's still a big man. People forget
and
this
he's
guy's
still
6 foot.
7. 6 foot. I don't know if he's 6'7", but he's at least
6'6".
He's at least 6'4". He's way taller than I. He's way taller than I am.
I'm 6'3".
Yeah.
And that's why I say about 6'6".
Okay, I mean, he might be. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe
that's a big man.
Yeah. So he's a big guy.
Brody's a big guy too.
Kudos to to him and the match he had Wednesday night as we record on a Friday afternoon. So that's really all that I have in my current goings on in wrestling review. I think we've touched on a few things. I think we've pretty much hit a lot of the points that we wanted to hit today. What do you want to say kind of in closing to kind of wrap this thing up?
Why do you want to go and make something edgy at first even more crazy? I'm talking about the heel turn of Roman Reigns.
Okay.
What in the world are you doing?
Okay, we're going back to Roman. Do you not like this turn?
This should have been the first thing for Roman from the get-go. Seth, great in-ring competitor. I mean, there's certain things that Seth says and does that just rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I like him as a person, but it's just his character. Ambrose was that wild card. I liken him to the Joker.
Okay.
I liken Seth Rollins to Two-Face.
Yeah, right, because that's where he turned out to be.
And Roman, if you're going to make him Superman, then you got to present him his Lex Luthor and Brock Lesnar. Forever and a day, Brock has got to be on top of Roman. Every time Roman gets a sprint way to become the man without contention, Brock should be there every time.
Well, there's a story for you right now. Brock is allegedly not under WWE contract and may go back to the UFC to fight John Jones. That is big on the rumor mill right now.
I am probably the biggest Brock Lesnar fan on the face of the planet, but Brock, don't go mess with John Jones. If you thought
you think it'll end badly for him,
if you thought Cain Velasquez or even Alistair Overeem, that's the one. If you thought that was bad, let me introduce you to Mr. John Jones. He'll give you a fight.
Yeah.
But I think Brock is letting everybody get their jollies off. He's going to be back with WWE, and he's going to be back to out Roman instantly.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's it's just another price grab. Some people say he might go to AEW. That's not going to happen.
If he goes to AEW and they don't give him the belt and have him the champion,
like the first week,
at least be the champion for the next year.
Yeah, I don't think he's going. I don't think their pockets are deep enough. I think Vince McMahon can counter any offer they would ever come up with. They're not going to let Brock get away. He'll be back at some point. Let's see, what do we got coming up on the WWE calendar? Royal Rumble is not too far around the corner, so that would be a good time to come back, because I can't see WrestleMania without Brock.
Not right now.
Nope. No, not right now. So
there's nobody to replace him.
So he'll be there. I think it's just a matter of time. Like I said, I think this is just a negotiation tactic and nothing more. As far as Roman's heel turn, which was what we started to talk about before we got off on
he had
Brock.
all them kids all up on him. Man, that's the part about Roman that really irked me. Because it's like the kids were finally coming around, and if the kids come around, mom and dad with the pocketbook and the money is going to buy the Roman Reigns dolls, and everything will be fine.
Here's what I think happened with Roman. And we've got about 8 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
So before we said we were going to wrap up, we'll try to stick to our time. Here's what I saw. Roman's a big guy. You had the Shield. Shield was, even though they were heels, they were wildly popular.
Right.
When we got to Royal Rumble, remember the thing was it had already been leaked that Batista was going to win this thing.
Right.
There was no Daniel Bryan in the Royal Rumble, so everybody was mad. So when it came down to those two, they wanted Roman to win. I think Brain Trust said, "Oh, here's a guy we can make a star out of. Here's a good crowd reaction for this guy," and they made him a babyface without really changing him, or they tried to change him. They didn't change the music. He's still using the Shield music.
Shield music.
And then just some of the promos. Do you remember Suffering Succotash?
Yes.
Do you remember? I don't think Roman had the mic skills, or just maybe he was getting the wrong scripts or whatever it was. I don't think they know what to do with him as a babyface.
Roman was the guy that didn't need to talk.
Yeah. That's why you have Paul now.
He still doesn't need Paul. Oh man, let me throw this something at you. Roman is royalty.
Samoan royalty, yes. In the wrestling business, of course, yeah.
That table should have been set for him already. I just think that the fans just don't like it or don't recognize it, and somebody out the family is going to have to come and
the fans
help it along.
Here's my thing. The fans have been conditioned to reject anything that comes from WWE corporate, and it all goes back to Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon.
I just watched that last.
When they portrayed Vince as the evil owner, they still perceive him that way. So anything that seems like, hey, that's Vince's guy, is going to be naturally rejected from the wrestling audience because you've told them for 20 years, Mr. McMahon is evil. That's my theory. So, and that's kind of how I feel about it. So, I think Roman's in the right spot right now. I do. I mean, he was getting some sympathy when he came back from his leukemia and stuff like that, and he did sell it. Yeah. You didn't hear the crowd reaction when he came back? When he said he was cancer-free?
That wasn't the crowd noises that they...
No, that was real crowd noise. That's back when you had a crowd.
He had a crowd?
He had a crowd. Yeah, the crowds were behind him. And when he first came back from leukemia. Now, later on, it kind of went back to the same old stuff.
Oh, so it was right after the McMahons and Triple H said that there was going to be something fresh and new.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. Fresh and new. Didn't really happen. Yeah, put that down in your notes.
Okay.
So, I don't think with wrestling we need to try to reinvent the wheel here.
No.
But sooner or later, there's gonna have to be a guy to challenge Drew. There's going to have to be a guy to challenge Roman on the other channel. Who's it going to be?
Keith Lee.
Could be Keith Lee on Raw. I don't know who it is on SmackDown. I know who I'd love it to be. I'd love it to be Cesaro, but he's stuck in a tag team. But he's stuck in a tag team. So
no. You didn't catch SmackDown late, did you? Where the beginnings of the spat between him and Nakamura?
Well, there was a challenge on Raw with Nakamura and Cesaro against the Street Profits for Monday night.
Oh. If y'all watched SmackDown last Friday.
I'm going to watch tonight, and we'll have more on that, so we'll know.
I'm glad you said that. That is what's probably going to happen. So Vince is going to put the belt on Cesaro.
If he does, it's long overdue. He's always been one of the best in that company. So underrated, so underutilized, and they've just made him a tag. Of course, he was in an incredible tag team in Ring of Honor called the Kings of Wrestling. If anybody remembers that, if you want to go back,
what's his name? Cassius
Ono, Chris Hero.
Yeah,
and. So I don't know if he just got the perception as a tag team guy, or just he should be a single. Maybe No, I don't think. I was getting ready to say maybe he needs a mouthpiece. No, I just heard his promo on Monday. He talks just fine.
But he is a Heyman guy. Remember?
Yeah. Maybe that holds him back. I don't know.
Well, no, that's what's going to propel him. Because remember when Brock was? I think that was Championship 3, the third title reign.
Sure.
There was Brock, Punk, and Cesaro.
Yeah.
With Heyman.
Okay.
Now you got Roman.
Well, we got Roman. Brock is waiting in the wings somewhere. Brock could turn out to be the fan favorite this time, which is not that's not a stretch either. People have cheered Brock before.
There's your good guy.
So we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how SmackDown goes tonight, and we'll see how our next podcast goes as we're rapidly running out of time. I am Jason Willis. Thank you, Will Spann.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad we finally did it. Yeah.
For the Will and Willis Wrestling Podcast, we'll talk about some stuff next week.
Retribution.
Ooh, we could talk about Retribution next week. Why don't we talk about Retribution next week, and we'll have some other stuff on top of that as well. As we approach minute 59 of this podcast, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening in, and of course, as always, we do accept cash. I'll post my PayPal.
I have PayPal, Chime, and Cash App.
We may post all of that before we're all done. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. It's been our pleasure. Take care.
Love, peace, and hair grease.